Today we're making my mommy's Nana great pumpkin pie.
That's right. We're gonna make my grandma's pumpkin pie recipe. Let's get baking. All right, guys. So as Lexi said, today we are going to be making my Grandma Plu's, her great Grandma Plu's, pumpkin pie recipe, handed down from generation to generation. It was given to my mom, and my mom texted me a picture of it. I'll put that up on the screen so you can see it. And actually at the top of the little recipe card, it says it was the Kroger recipe. So I guess she got it from the Kroger grocery store, maybe? I'm not really sure. So anyway, this has always been a staple in our house for Thanksgiving for as long as I can remember. And now I am sharing that tradition with Lexi. So let's get into this. The first thing we're gonna need is to make a pie crust.
Yeah.
And now my grandma, later on in life, she just used the rolled up pie crust in the box, but we actually make a real pie crust. Now, if you're my mom, you make your pie crust with Crisco, vegetable shortening. And I've tried that before, and it's good, don't get me wrong, but I enjoy making mine with butter because I feel like it's just a little bit more flavorful and flaky. Don't ask me why. I've even tried half and half, but I like doing it with butter.
Yeah.
It's a super easy recipe. So the first thing you're going to need...
And because we're using butter, it's because it will feel right.
Yes, it will taste good, won't it?
Yeah.
So what you're going to need is a cup of butter. That's 2 sticks. And you want it to be super cold, and you want to cube it up ahead of time. And then put the cubes back in the refrigerator to stay chilled. Because just working with it with your hands to cube it, my hands were getting all greasy because butter can melt really quickly. So make sure you've chilled it ahead of time into the freezer or the fridge, whichever one you want to do. And then the next thing you're going to need is your flour. And we are just doing regular all-purpose flour today. We are going to need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I should say that this recipe does yield 2 pie crusts. You can freeze your other one. That's what I normally do for the next time that I make pie, because we're only making 1 pumpkin pie today, but there were so many of us at Grandma Plu's Thanksgiving that she always made 2 pumpkin pies. So can you help get the flour, Lexi?
Yeah.
All right, so
This is a big pie.
it is. So I am going to get out the flour.
Okay.
And then can you dump it in there for me? Dump it in the bowl. There's 1.
I think we need more flour.
Yeah, we've got more. All right, there's 2. And then we need our 1/2 cup measure, because we need 2.5 cups of flour. All right, there we go. Dump it in there. Great job. That's all we need in the way of flour. Then we're going to need a little bit of salt.
I can dump the salt.
Yep. We're going to take the yellow one.
Yeah.
That's a teaspoon measure. And we're going to dump in a teaspoon of salt with our flour. Okay?
Okay.
So hold it over while I pour in the salt for you. There you go. Dump it in there. And then take your little spoon and kind of stir it around so that you get all of the salt and the flour combined. Just don't want a lump of salt somewhere. Okay, perfect. Nope, that's fine. And then last but not least, you need your butter. And that's it for ingredients besides your ice water, which I have right here. And you do really legitimately want ice water. I keep about a half a cup of water and put ice cubes in it. So I'm ready to go. All right, so here's what we're going to do, Lexi. We are going to dump all this butter into the flour, okay?
Okay.
Hear how hard that is? It's nice and chilled.
Well, it's very hard.
That's right. And then you're going to help me with this part, okay? This is a pastry cutter, blender, whatever you want to call it. And you're literally just going to cut in the flour with the butter. You're going to go like this. And it's going to blend them together until your flour is coarse and like pea-sized chunks. If you don't have a pastry cutter, you could use 2 knives or you could use a fork. I've even done this with my blender before, my food processor is what I mean to say, my food processor. But, and that does come together really quick. But Lexi likes to help me, and this is the way I grew up making it, so this is the way we're going to make it. Here, let me help you. All right. So you've really got to use your arm muscles and get down in there, and you got to go both directions, see?
Okay, I think I can do it.
All right. So as you can see, we have got this all blended together now, and it resembles like coarse crumbs, like pea-sized crumbs, which is what you're looking for. You don't want big chunks. You want coarse crumbs. So once you've gotten coarse crumbs, you can begin to add your water and stir. And you may not need all of the water. It depends on your climate. Like I always say, dough is a living, breathing thing. Depending on the temperature that day, like here it's kind of rainy, it may depend. So Lexi, you are going to stir for me.
Okay.
You're going to stir this. And I'm... Be careful, please. And I am going to dump in a little bit of water, all right?
Okay.
Oh, maybe not the ice cube, huh? And you want to add just enough water until the dough comes together and it's a nice shaggy dough. Good, I'm just going to check with my hands and see if it's coming together, which it is. This is perfect.
Okay, I can't wait to crack the egg.
So then what we're going to do now is we are going to gather up all this dough, and then I am going to divide it in half because I only need half for this pie recipe. All right, there we go. So I'm going to stick this in the fridge, and then we will get started on our filling. All right, well, we have our pie dough chilling in the fridge, and my extra one I put in the freezer for next time. And now we are going to move on to making the filling while our pie dough chills. Lexi's excited. So the first thing you need is a can of...
Because I get to cut the eggs because my mommy taught me how.
That's right. She likes cooking with me, don't you?
Yeah.
And then one day, if you ever have kids, you can show them how to make this recipe. So all you need now is a can of pumpkin filling, or pumpkin puree, not pumpkin filling is what I mean to say. So you don't want the already pre-spiced filling. You want the pumpkin puree, the plain pumpkin. So we're going to see if this will dump into this bowl, okay?
Okay, I hope so.
Well, we may have to... Yeah. It may not come out of there. You could use real pumpkin. I do not have that kind of time this year. And we don't normally do real pumpkins when carving whenever it's Halloween because we don't want them to get moldy or anything due to her immune system. So we're waiting until next year. So maybe next year. All right, we're going to have to take this spatula and scrape it out. See? Look at all that. That is basically... It smells like pumpkin. I don't know if you like the smell of pumpkin or not, but you know, when you take all the seeds and scoop out all the flesh out of a pumpkin, they have little smaller pumpkins that are meant for baking. Alright, so there is our pumpkin puree. And then the next thing we need is 3/4 of a cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. And I keep mine in a plastic bag. So when they say firmly packed, they want you to really press it in there. All right, dump it in. 1. Very good.
It's a sandcastle. It kind of looks like a sandcastle.
You know what? Brown sugar kind of does look like a sandcastle. It's kind of looks like wet sand, doesn't it? 2.
2 sandcastles. There's 2 sandcastles.
And 3.
It looks like the same. 3 sandcastles. 1, 2, 3.
All right. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and stir this up a little bit, okay?
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, just hit your little castles and break them apart, right?
Yeah, it's okay. I like to bring stuff apart.
Break that one apart too. Yep, and then we're going to stir it a little bit just to combine the puree and the brown sugar a little bit so you get out any of the lumps because you don't want a lumpy pumpkin pie, do you?
Yeah.
You want me to help you a little bit?
Yeah.
All right, so then once we have gotten this stirred together a little bit,
I can't wait for the eggies.
the next thing we're going to do actually is add the eggs. And so we need to add 2 well-beaten eggs, okay? So Lexi has learned how to crack eggs, and she's going to show you how. You hit it on the side. That's right.
Make sure you do it.
A little more. Put it right there and just crack it harder. There you go. There you go. Now.
See, like that.
Great job. Now we're going to crack the other one. There you go. Go ahead. That's what we got paper towels for. All right. Now to beat an egg, you're going to hold it like this. Watch me. And you're going to go like that. Okay? Other way. There you go.
Oh, liquidy.
That's right. You're going to make it all liquidy. All right. Let me see. They want it well beaten. So that way it'll incorporate really easily. All right. So we're going to dump this in here. Okay?
Okay.
And then you're going to stir it.
With this again.
Yep. Go ahead and stir gently, carefully, right?
Oh, it's good. Miss.
Good job.
Whoa.
That's great, Lexi. You did good. So for the most part, that's combined. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to add 1.5 tablespoons of melted butter, and I kind of let this cool down a bit, and we added the eggs first, so that way your butter doesn't scramble your eggs. Okay, so start stirring, and I'm gonna dump this in there. Okay, stir, stir, stir.
I need to add it. They're very good.
Great job. All right, once we've got the butter added in, then we are going to add in 1 tablespoon of dark cooking molasses, which is, I always remember my grandma using this. This is pretty much all I think you can find at the store unless you tried to order one online. This is pretty much the main one that's out there. And I always have to buy a new one of these every year because I really need to find more items that take molasses, like molasses cookies or ginger something. But I usually only use molasses for pumpkin pie. So I need to come up with some new recipes that take molasses so the rest of it doesn't go to waste. Or just make more pumpkin pie throughout the year, I guess. Alright, so it wants you to use 1 tablespoon of the molasses. So we're going to add in 1 tablespoon of the molasses. So you're going to hold that, and then hold it with this hand. And dump it in there.
We want everything combined.
Yeah. Then we're going to add our 1/2 teaspoon of salt while she's stirring, and I think that's my 1/4 teaspoon measure. So I'm going to add 2 of these.
Oh, I want to.
1. You're going to keep stirring.
Stir, 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 stir the salt.
And then we are going to add in 1.5 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice.
What is over there?
Yes, it is. Now, if you didn't want to do pumpkin pie spice, oh, gotta be careful. How'd you do that? All right, that's enough stirring. Cooking with kids, messes happen. It is what it is. Just gotta be careful, okay? So, I'm using pumpkin pie spice, but as I was going to say, you can also use, I have it written on the back of the card here because Grandma had this written down, that if you didn't have pumpkin pie spice, you can substitute 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/4 plus 1/8 teaspoon of ginger. Please don't do that before it drips everywhere. And then 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So you could sub ginger, nutmeg, and cinnamon in place of the pumpkin pie spice. But I find that the pumpkin pie spice is pretty much already measured out for you. And not only that, it's what we grew up using. Because the thing is, you're not going to use, unless you're going to use all those other spices, which I don't always, so I don't tend to have those on hand. So, we are going to use 1.5 teaspoons of the pumpkin pie spice. So here is...
Does it actually smell like spice?
You want to smell it? You know, a little too spicy, huh? All right, so you're going to dump that in there. Okay, just dump it in there. Good. Oops. Let's not do that. And then I'm going to take my little 1/4 teaspoon here. I think my 1/2 teaspoon one is in the dishwasher.
Yeah, because it got messy when we were making so much cooking videos.
Oh, yeah. So then we're going to do 2/4 teaspoon because 2 of these smaller ones makes a 1/2. Okay, so dump that in there. You don't like the smell?
It's time to stir it up. Oh, stir.
Go ahead. And then the last thing we're going to do is add in milk. I would at least do 2%. I have whole on hand because that's what I use for making dumplings is whole milk. And I use heavy cream for mashed potatoes, but in a pinch, I have also used whole milk. So that's just what I grew up seeing. So, all right. So it wants to do a half plus an 1/8 cup of milk, and that's basically I took her 2-pie recipe and I cut it in half to 1. She actually has the instructions on the card in parentheses. Beside each thing, she has it where you could cut it down. I guess the original Kroger recipe was to make 2 pies, and so she always made 2 pies, but if she ever needed to make one, I don't recall a time where she ever made 1 pie, actually. So it wants you to do a half plus an 1/8 cups of milk. So I'm going to take my 1/4 cup, stir gently, and I'm just going to do half of it since I don't have an 1/8 cup measure.
I want everything combined together.
That's right. You want everything combined together, so you're going to gently stir until all the milk and the filling and spices and everything are all combined.
I just scrape it down and if anyone any of it can down.
So stir all the way around. Gently. You don't want to stir so much that you slosh it over the sides of the bowl, right?
Yeah.
And then once we have this filling done, basically mixed together, we can go grab our pie dough out of the fridge and roll out our crust to get into our pie pan. So we'll see you in a few minutes. All right, so we have got our pie dough out of the refrigerator. We've cleaned up our work area just a little bit. And we're going to put down a little bench flour.
Yeah, and also on our headlines.
So you want to make sure, don't touch, your surface is lightly floured. So we're going to stick it right in the center.
My mommy's going to help me.
And then we're going to put a little bit of flour on your hands. We're going to put a little bit of flour on top.
Hold my hands so don't stick.
And then I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my hands. And I'm going to put it over the rolling pin.
Don't want me to stick to the rolling pin.
So do you want me to roll?
Yeah, you roll first.
So the first thing we're going to do is just kind of
Yeah, and then I'll roll second. You roll first and then
roll this out. Sprinkle. You don't want it to stick.
You do first and then I do.
And it is okay if it tears or cracks a little bit. You can always steam it back together. Just put a little water on your finger and put over it and press it back together and you won't have any issues. So we're just going to continue to roll this out and turning it as we roll it until we have it rolled out to about a 1/4 or an 1/8 of an inch thick. You don't want it too thick, but you don't want it too thin either. And then we'll be able to transfer it to our pie plate. So we have our dough all rolled out, as you can see.
It's very big.
It took up, a little bit over the 8 inches, right? Because you want to roll a little bit extra out so you have enough to fold over. So when in doubt, always use your pie pan plate to check, which we got plenty. So basically you could just use a regular pie plate if you wanted, but I like to use disposable, no muss, no fuss. I don't have to worry about trying to bring a dish home if I'm leaving it with people. So it's easier that way. And the easiest way I know to do it is you can either fold it up into like quarters, or you can just do this and kind of roll it over your rolling pin. Takes a little practice to do that, but I've been making a lot of pies. And then you get it into your pie plate and you're going to gently press it down against the sides. Yeah. So sometimes that means picking up the edge that's laid over and giving it some slack so that you don't poke a hole, right? And then what I like to do is take a knife and trim off a little bit of the edge.
Be careful if you're using a knife with this. Be careful when you're using a knife or ask an adult to help you.
That's right. Be careful if you're using a knife or ask an adult to help you.
Because
and I leave like a half an inch hanging off the edge. And I try to like make an even line if I can, depending upon how much is hanging over the edge. And the reason I do that is so we'll have a clean edge whenever we are crimping. I mean, you don't necessarily have to crimp the edge. That's getting a little fancy, I will say. But that's just the way my grandma always did it. And it's not too hard to do. Your pie will just look a little more rustic if you don't crimp, I think. And then I always like to take the extra pie scraps and I'll roll them up into pinwheels with a little bit of butter and cinnamon and sugar, or even the pumpkin pie spice if you wanted. And I think that tastes really good. Little like pie dough pinwheels, I call them.
Ooh. They're like my size.
They are like your size.
Yeah.
All right. So we have this pretty much. So then what I do is you're going to fold it under. Not over, but under. So you're going to take everything that you is hanging over the edge. And then I'm going to teach Lexi how my grandma and my mom taught me how to crimp pie.
Ooh.
It's really easy.
Is it? How do you do it?
Well, you got to get all of it tucked under first.
Okay.
Now, once you have all of your edge tucked under, you want to make sure that all of is pressed inside your pie plate. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to use your thumb, your knuckle, your fingers, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to like go like this. See? And then where you did your two knuckles, you're going to put your knuckle in the indentation of the next one. Watch me. And then you're going to do it again. And you're going to keep going around, and you're going to keep putting your knuckle in what you just indented. So you always have a spot. So I'm going to do half, and then Lexi's going to help me. Okay, so that's better than nothing. So now, before we dump in the filling, what do you think the last thing is that we're going to do?
Last thing is we're gonna
What do you think? Same thing we do to our pizza crust. What do we do to our pizza crust?
poke it.
That's right. You have to pierce the bottom with a fork so that way you don't get big air bubbles in your crust. So you've got to be extra careful because this is not as resilient as our pizza crust. So be careful. Good job. So once we have poked holes in the entire crust, just do a little bit over here on the edge.
I can do some of
And then we're gonna dump it in there. All right, I think we're done. Yep, all right, that's pretty good. Now we are going to take and dump our filling in here. Lexi's gonna help me.
Yeah.
Let me give this one last stir to make sure it's all combined.
Yeah.
Which it is.
Here we go. 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 It looks like.
Then we're gonna scrape down the sides.
This is the worst.
That smells delicious.
I will totally eat that.
Yeah. Well, we gotta save it for Thanksgiving tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then after you've got it in there,
Maybe I can eat
we're
it
just
on
gonna.
Thanksgiving.
That's right. You're gonna spread it out. Oh, we had a little teeny splatter. Just if you had any splatters, don't worry about it. And that's it. Pumpkin pie, except for we gotta bake it, don't we?
Yeah.
So to bake it, I'm gonna consult my card here because Grandma always used 2 different times. She did 450 degrees for 10 minutes, the first 10. And then what she does is she does 325 degrees for the remainder, which is about 45 minutes. So what she does is she would open the door once she was turning it down to 325 and leave the door open for about 3 minutes to allow it to really cool down quickly so you don't overburn your pie. And then she would check and make sure that a toothpick inserted in the center of the pie was coming out clean, and when it was jiggling, it was like set. So that's basically what you're gonna do. She always used a pie ring. She had this old metal pie ring cover that covered the edge of her crust so it doesn't get burnt. I don't have one of those. They make them. They're nice. I think I'm going to get one. They make silicone ones. And they really do prevent the crust from getting burnt because that crust is sitting up there and it tends to get darker than the rest of the pie. So if you do not have that, which I don't, then a little trick I have learned is pie plates tend to come in 3 packs. And so what I do is I take a knife and I literally cut carefully around the edge, and then I can use the pie pan itself as my shield. And that's what I've been doing for years now. And I know if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But those pie shields look awfully nice. And then I wouldn't have to waste an entire pie plate. So basically then, just be extra careful because since you cut this, it's going to be kind of sharp, right? So then I fold out a little bit. Sometimes you have to like cut little slits so that it'll fold out better. But if you don't have a fancy pie ring or an extra disposable pie plate, you can always use tin foil.
And once it's done cooking, and then this is the last day. This is the last thing that you have to do to make pumpkin pie.
So then I just kind of
last thing that you need to do to make pumpkin pie.
fold this kind of around it,
So how is it going to take that world?
and then you start folding this over.
Ooh, that's a little.
And then this helps protect your edges from getting burnt. And I find that this stays on better than tinfoil. Now, I do think they have some really good pie shields out there that would do even better than this, but this is what I have this year. I looked into getting one too late, honestly, And all the stores were sold out of them. Imagine that. Everyone's being sold out of a pie shield at Thanksgiving. So basically, you're going to put it on there just like that. And then that is going to help protect your crust. And hopefully it's not going to get super burnt. So we are going to put this in the oven, and then we will see you when it's all done.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the pie is all done. It came out of the oven. It looks delicious. It smells so good. It's going to be hard not to eat any before tomorrow. We're doing our part in just having a really, really small Thanksgiving this year, like we always do. I'm not seeing my side of the family for Thanksgiving, which we normally hadn't been able to travel due to Lexi and being cold and flu season, but now you've got COVID to worry about. So we are just doing our part and keeping it small this year. Just a little bubble of family that we see over here that takes extra precautions because of us. And of course, my father-in-law doesn't really go anywhere. So we're just going to have a small little Thanksgiving this year. So from the Lexi's Leukemia Warrior family to yours, we hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. And we will catch you next time. Thank you so much for watching. And please, if you love our videos, don't forget to subscribe. Lexi is still on her quest to get to 1,000 subscribers. I don't know that it's going to happen, but we are going to try our hardest to keep making content and promoting awareness for childhood cancer. Love you all. Bye.